Now today I've come to the orchard. I'm next to the pallet compost base because today is going to be a busy day. First of all, I'm trying to harvest some of the homemade compost, but also after the storm Owen, we still have a lot of branch work around the place, and that would need to be chipped up so we could get our own wood chip as well out of it. So overall it's going to be a little bit of a spring cleaning type of an idea, but a lot of it is to do with getting the compost harvested and get a new batch start to cook again. Hoping to get the whole family to pitch in to get as much done in today's dry weather as possible. So let's see how we get on. Now spring is a perfect time to do this job. Obviously any kind of mulching, adding fresh compost to beds, and I could use every bit of it on the actual garden beds as well. But I have these big metal planters, those oval raised beds that will need a lot of soil, and some of this top surface of this first bay now that I've opened up is still not composted fully. So this is just a mix of grass cuttings I can see, and anything, I suppose the prunings as well from the garden from the season before. And I'm going to use them on a lower level because I obviously filled the bottom half of it with all the garden sort of, again, prunings and cuttings in September last year. And those prunings and cuttings have been actually composting down quite well. Well, it's been just sort of drying up a bit, and the overall height or the volume of it has reduced a bit. I've chopped it down a little bit more as well, just to get it into a finer cuts of it. So when I'm coming with all this new material, it's going to sort of get all mixed in together, and it can all start composting down further. And then onto the very top layer, that's where I'm going to put my main compost then. Where the plants are actually going to be growing into, and then as time goes on, I have to just keep adding more compost to those beds until it's fully filled up. It's not an easy job. It is a fairly physically demanding job. And for years I've tried to improve my skills in making compost. Now, it shouldn't actually be that hard, but I think it's just to do with the type of materials you have in hand, that there's a season where you have a lot of this kind of a luscious green growth, so you have a lot of nitrogen, plants full of nitrogen, and then you don't have enough of carbonous material or brown material, and then you have a whole season like the winter is, autumn or fall and winter, where you have all the carbonous material. So I think, yeah, that's where the difficulty lies, why it's so hard to get the compost making right, and obviously then aerating it or turning it. Who will have the energy to do all that? Especially when the actual gardening jobs themselves, the other jobs, also take time, take energy. So yeah, making compost is not easy at all. I can actually see now that the top layer of it, at least, even though next to the board it was really nice and fully composted, black stuff, that black gold, in the middle or the rest of the part, it hasn't broken down as easily yet, and I can see actually there's leaves of the trees in there as well, so it looks like maybe there wasn't just quite enough of green material going through to break it down better. But I'm still going to keep filling those big metal raised beds because there is never going to be enough of compost. And compost is not cheap at all. The ton bags, sort of the builder's ton bags, which are like meter by meter, so it's like 1 cubic meter of soil, it's nearly €100 plus then your home delivery. And if you'd be buying it in bags, the compost in bags, that's even, it's in volume, it's going to work out even more expensive. So I will definitely still have to order bags of compost, of those ton bags of compost, to fill up the rest of the raised beds. Plus, if I ever want to move on with the rest of the field side as well and get the plantings going, I need a lot of soil there and potentially more wood chip. And the wood chip we'll be making from here will come handy. Now in theory, getting the compost mix right is easy. It should be like half the green stuff mixed with half of the brown stuff, so to get one unit or something. And then you let it settle. Well, it needs air as well, so you should turn it, you should aerate it. Ideally you have a little bit of like woody material in it as well that will create naturally those air pockets. And then it's just getting the balance, yes, of sort of wetness in it, right? So if there's too much of green, it becomes soggy. If there's too much brown, it's too dry. So that's the theory of it. In reality, it is quite hard to get it right. This is now my third set of compost bays. I had very originally a big set as well. I've no sort of footage of it. This goes back like 20 years ago. So I would have had, yeah, 2 big pallet compost bays previously. I do have a hot bin as well, which I have to get going again, and which usually has been the best during the winter season for me for kitchen scraps. But these are really handy now for the sake of using up all the grass clippings we have from here, plus then the wood chip, sort of the bedding from the hen coop. You can probably hear the chainsaw in the background. We really are going to start with chipping the branches shortly. So what I've checked now, this has not broken down enough. Not enough of me filling the raised beds with, but I did get a good layer of that semi-composted compost from here into those metal raised beds, into both of them. So all they need now is just to be filled to the top with actual fully composted down compost, which I do have to buy. And what I'll try to do in the meantime then is, when I'll get the chance now, before the chainsaw keeps getting closer to me, is to move all the material from the other bay over to here. I'll sort of fluff up the stuff that's here already, and then I would just keep adding over from one bay to the other, because there is still so much more fresh material to come from the garden, and I need the space. I need some place to put it. I've made myself a cup of herbal tea with honey because the wind has picked up and it's actually quite cold now. And mind you, the temperatures have been actually very cold this whole week. Even like overnight, we were constantly having frosts. I think the highest, the lowest it was -4. And I've obviously cleared out my greenhouse for those coals, except I left the cabbages and the cauliflower seedlings in there, but I took all the potatoes that I had chitting on it away from there. And overall, yeah, it's been very, very cold. And even yesterday, actually, it was sunnier, so it was a little bit more pleasant. But overall, the daytime temperatures are not anything higher than 6 degrees, I'd say, in Celsius. Now, we got a good chunk of the work done. Not all of it. There truly was just too much branch work there, and especially the hedgerow where the storm had pushed the trees out and the sort of shrubbery out. There was a lot of clearing, so we have a massive heap of sort of ivy and these kind of mangled branches still left. But anything that we had was sort of clear cut, so the apple tree, the plum tree, and they were straightforward to just to take off the small branches and feed them into the wood chipper. They got done, and like that's quite a back-breaking work, all fairness now. Especially when you're dealing with machinery, so like the wood chipper, that's a self-feeding wood chipper, so you stand out of its way when it's pulling the branches in. So you do have to be alert when you're using it. Obviously my husband was using the big chainsaw, I had the small one, but that is still a chainsaw, so it is very sharp and it's a proper tool. So you do have to be alert and aware and mindful when you're using these kind of tools. And look, at the end of the day, you are going to get tired. You are going to get tired. So yeah, we still got a big chunk done, and it's much cleaner now. And even yesterday, I started actually a bit of this prep work, knowing that we'll bring the big chipper out. Is I actually took down the clematis from the trellis, because the trellis obviously was broken anyway. And it was interesting how the wind actually had knocked, like the trellis, one of the battens had stayed on the pergola, but it had pushed every bit of the nails out. It's, yeah, quite bizarre. Now it's all fixable. That's the really good side of it. But the clematis itself has to come off that area anyway, or has to come off the trellis itself before it can properly be fixed. And yeah, I have to actually eventually dig it out and find a new home for it. But that took a little bit of a time, do you know? There's a bit of a fiddly work getting this kind of a twining branch work off a trellis. And then I was looking at that dry branch work on Nepeta. I was like, okay, I can see new shoots starting to poke out. Nice green, sort of that greyish greeny foliage pushing out. I was okay, I might as well take now this dry foliage out of the way as well, and that can also be utilised here. And I moved on to the Buddleia and cut the Buddleia branch work down, because it's something I do between January and February anyway. And last year I had left it taller, and then by summertime I was not happy with my decision, because the shrub was actually too high. So I did want to bring the sort of flowers down to sort of eye level again. So I took the branch work down to quite close to ground, I think maybe 6 inches off the ground. So it always keeps rejuvenating itself anyway. And again, all that branch work was able to be chipped through here. But it is this constant of looking out for any other material that that needs to be cut down anyway. And when this big machinery is out, that just get them done, just get this job done, because once we have everything chipped that we need to get chipped, that has to be dragged back into the garage. So that's a not easy task. So we don't just keep bringing it in and out every time we need something small shredded. I have the electric shredder for it, but any kind of thicker branch work, the electric shredder is not good for it. It's absolutely perfect in the kitchen garden, just inside the kitchen garden, or these kind of small prunings, perfect. But when the big guns are out, you really is like, oh, this is going to be so much easier. Like, it takes seconds for this big petrol chipper to eat through those branch works. I had the small, or that kind of a dwarf laurel hedge I had on the side of the rose garden, because on one of the sides we've already taken it down and we've taken the roots out as well, and that's the planter I sort of had partially covered with plastic. I haven't planted it up yet. The other one had to be cut down as well, and like that branch work, or the root work, sorry, needs to be dug out as well eventually. But as the machinery is out, as I have the small chainsaw handy, and a bit of battery power still left in it, I took that down as well. So at least now I don't have to worry that maybe birds, especially the wagtails, are maybe starting to build any kind of nests under that branch work. So I'll get all these things cut back that genuinely need to be cut back. But the compost heap I did not get to turn. I actually ended up shredding the laurel hedging into the bay where I was taking as much of the material out for those metal planters, and I shredded the clematis prunings into that as well, as the rest of it all went into the bag. All the rest of the wooden or the branch work chips went into that big bag. You actually see that behind me there as well. So let's go and have a look at that. So as you see, this big ton bag is nearly full. I would have ordered compost in that size, so it's a 1 cubic meter space that's in it. And if I'd be buying like wood chip or wood mulch in this kind of a size bag, it would cost around 90 euros. So it's a little bit cheaper than compost, but not that much. So I don't know where they're taking all the wood chippings. I think it's like biofuel, but we don't get any free wood chip. We do have to buy it. Whatever we get is either our own homemade or we've had to buy it. So it makes a really nice fine chip if it's a thicker branch. Obviously the chipper has a limit as well how thick of a branch it will take, but any thin branches, it just chops them into this kind of 3-inch pieces, 2-3-inch pieces, which are really still easy to manage, and especially handy with this kind of power behind the chipper is that when we deal with hedgerow plants or branches, we have a lot of white thorn, and white thorn is thorny as hell. There's 2 little ones here, but usually it actually makes them quite dull or breaks them off, so you don't pinch yourself with them, because they actually have a chemical in them that can give you a reaction. You could actually get like a little infection in each of the places in the skin where it pierced it, and it will take a while to heal. So I'm definitely quite sensitive to it. So I do appreciate when it's been broken off, or like those really sharp thorns aren't danger to me as much as they would be if I'd be dealing with, let's say, the electric shredder. I'm quite wiped now. And I'm delighted I was able to move as much from the second bay into the first one as possible, because the first one now has a proper heap on top of it. I'm going to leave that open because otherwise I would have covered it up and I left sort of rainwater out of it, but now I'm going to leave it open at the moment. And there's still good 2 boards deep amount of compost still in the first bay, so that's where I'm going to end up adding more and more into. But as I was mixing it and stirring it, and especially what kept me going was seeing so many of those rat tunnels inside there. So I just wanted to interrupt any kind of homemaking festivities inside there. So I want to make sure that every bit of that area is churned up really. And it was quite easy to see then that I actually have a little bit too much of the brown material in there. So between the leaves, the branches, and the chicken coop bedding, there's a bit too much of brown. So I think that's why it wasn't breaking down as quickly. But the last time I was at these bays was actually in September. So they really only have had 5 months, and I haven't turned anything in the meantime. So I've sort of moved the second bay material over to one side, and whatever grass clippings we're going to get now, they're going to go in there, and they sort of need to be mixed together then. And as I said, the compost making is a constant observation, learning, manipulating the conditions what you have. That's when you want to make hot compost. Otherwise, if you would just leave a heap of grass, whatever, alone, nature will do its own thing, and it is going to rot it down for you. So that's what I'm thinking. I leave the first bay now alone for a year, and if I could get my hands on one of those compost aerators, that's what they are. They're like a big winding what? It's like a big ogre. You just stir it in, but I've never come across that here in any of the shops, so maybe I have to look online for it. And if you see Blossom made her way over here, I've no idea how. She must have heard me talking inside here. They are loose, but they were all well in the backyard when I last saw them. So she's the only one that came over. But I'm happy. She's fine, because she's really the only one that lays any eggs anyway. So she can get a bit of a protein boost from the earthworms, and that was really positive to see actually, the amount of earthworms that were inside both of those compost bays actually. But I leave you with a clip from last week's seed sowing, sort of the tray where I sowed the mix of vegetables in, and you can see the germination. And that clearly shows me that some of the packets have gone over. So I can definitely get rid of them. And also the same is actually, unfortunately, but the same story is with a full tray of lettuce seeds, because I sowed a full cell tray of lettuces, and there's only a couple of heads poking up. So I'm going to have to re-sow them. Not going to do them this weekend, but I'd say next weekend I'll just get them quickly done. And I also got another delivery of seeds in, so there's a new chili in there as well that I do have to I have to sow the seed. Now is the very last time to get that done. So so yeah, if you made it as far as this now at the end of this video, you are a star, you are brilliant, and thank you so much for that. And otherwise, I hope we'll see you next time again. It's getting late.